Hello, everybody. Welcome to Module 4 of Advanced Foundations of Literacy. So today we are going to get started on our topic, which we are in Module 4, which is applying scientifically based research to trauma-informed teaching. So just to kind of summarize where we've been in Module 1, we just looked at what is scientifically based literature. What does that look like? In Module 2, we looked at some of the theories behind that. And so you were to write about a theory. And then in Module 3, you were to teach a lesson that aligned with that theory. So all of that was to kind of build your background knowledge. Now we're going to be looking at different aspects of reading and how to do that. And this section in this module is about applying scientifically based research to trauma responsive teaching. And so in this module, I want you to define what is trauma responsive teaching, identify effective strategies to meet the literacy needs of students, select articles that demonstrate scientifically based trauma responsive teaching, and then you're going to write an application to that. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to explain some of your assignments, and then I'm going to talk to you about it a little bit. So if I go to the Learn section, I can see that there are 4 articles called Copy of Trauma-Informed Schools, Trauma-Informed Pedagogy, Trauma-Informed Elementary Schools, Trauma-Informed School Libraries. Preview each one, and then you need to pick one that you're going to be writing your paper about. So I'd like you to preview each, scan it, find the one you're interested in. That's the one that you're going to be writing about this week. There is a video on about trauma-informed teaching, actually 2, if you would like to watch those. So for your assignments, we do have a discussion post this week. And so your discussion post is that it says, what will you do to apply trauma-informed instructional strategies in your literacy instruction? Support your reasoning with scientifically based research evidence. You need to cite 2 scholarly sources. So in your discussion post, you need to explain what trauma-informed instructional strategies will I use, and then you need to have at least 2 scholarly sources to back up those strategies. And remember, your initial post is always due on Saturday, and then your response is due Tuesday. Then you have a paper, not a huge paper, but you do have a paper. The paper is, let me go to the paper. It is called an Insights, Resources, and Application paper. So you're to pick one of the 4 articles, not all 4, just one of them. And you're to write a 300 to 500 word essay about it. And there's going to be 3 sections. The first section is the I part. You need to write about 3 insights that you learned from that article. So what were 3 articles that you learned? The R stands for resources. You need to find 2 additional scholarly sources that have similar thoughts or ideas or themes that will deepen your understanding of the topic. And you need to include those in your paper. And you could use similar ones that you put on the discussion post. And then the A is the application. Write 2 or 3 sentences that relate your knowledge to your literacy instruction. So you're going to apply it. It does need to be an APA. You need to have a title page, references, and text citations. That's what we're doing today. Now I want to show you a little slide here, because I want to talk to you a little bit about what does it mean to be a teacher that uses trauma-informed strategies. So first of all, you should know that 60% of children have been exposed to subtype of trauma, and trauma can be measured. And there's a very popular assessment. If you just Google it, it's called the ACEs assessment. And it can identify the number of ACEs or adverse childhood experiences that a child has. It could be abuse, neglect, domestic violence, substance abuse, a person being in prison, a parent being in prison, mental illness. There's a lot of them listed in this infographic. It just has the major one. And what research shows is that there's a correlation between students, how well they do in school, their behavior, uh, even ADHD diagnosis and so forth, and amount of ACEs that student has is adverse childhood experiences. And many times what we know is that many kids could be misdiagnosed as oppositional defiant or ADHD when it really is a product of adverse childhood experiences. And so trauma does impact children. Students may struggle with self-regulation and executive function, staying on task, and even forming trusting relationships. And so in two of the articles you're going to read, they talk about different approaches, one being an approach that a school used called the ARC approach, and that stands for building attachment, self-regulation, and then the R is resiliency. Sorry, I had to remember. So that's that little triangle there. And so the school did that, and it's a research article that tells how successful it was. Some of the guiding principles were making sure kids felt safe, building trust, giving them some choices, collaboration, and an empowerment. That was one article. The other article was a program called the TIES, Trauma-Informed Program, and that has research to show the effectiveness of that program. Then you have two other articles that really talk about specific strategies that you should do as a trauma-informed teacher. So I think that hopefully that will be of help to you. So I think it's very important that we realize that we don't have to do these trauma-informed strategies in lieu of teaching of reading. We're doing both at the same time. And so we are making sure that our students are reading effectively. We're having those high expectations, but we're also having that Christian worldview, that empathetic worldview, where we're doing some things to make accommodations and modifications for a child that might have adverse childhood experiences. I did this activity with my own class, and I remember when I came to Southeastern, I literally had every ACE identified on there. So I had a lot of adverse childhood experiences. And I can tell you that what helped me as a child, and then even going to college with a lot of ACEs in my life, was having a support system. And so having a support system in my school, but also having my church that was there. And you do have to surround kids with wraparound services. And I was very blessed that I did have some of those services in my life. And so I want you to know that a child that has experienced adverse childhood experiences, one of the worst things you could do is have low expectations. I remember as a child having just very low expectations for anything in my life. I didn't even think I would ever go to college, and God brought that to fruition. And I remember that I did not know anyone that had gone to college except for my teachers. I knew teachers went to college, but no one in my family had ever gone. I was the first person in my family to go to college. And it was just very unreal and unobtainable in my life, I thought. Fast forward, when my youngest son, I think he was about in 4th grade, I remember he came home and he said, "Mom, did you know that you don't have to go to college? Like, you don't have to." And that was what that's what the change in one generation went from me not knowing anyone that had gone to college to my son saying, "Oh, you don't have to go to college. Like, it's a choice." And I remember he came home another day, and of course, I was a professor at the University of Louisville at the time. My husband was a chaplain, so he has a teacher and a preacher for mom and dad. And he said, "Mom, the expectations are so high." And I guess he wanted me to talk to his teacher. And I said, Sam, I'm glad they have high expectations. Come and talk to me when they have low expectations. Then I'll say something to your teachers. But right now, good for you that you have high expectations. And so that generational poverty and some of that trauma because of Christ, my husband and I were able to, through Christ, turn around some of those things. And I'm very happy that my own children were not exposed to all those adverse childhood experiences, that trauma that I was exposed to. So I'm happy about that. So I hope you will study this, take it into heart. As teachers, we do come in contact with a lot of our kids that have experienced a lot of trauma. So how do we become trauma informed teachers that teach the content, but also are empathetic and can kind of maneuver and do strategies that are going to be supportive of our students? As always, I'll be meeting on Monday nights for open office hours if you want to come in. Again, you have 2 assignments. You have some articles to read, you have a discussion post, and then a insights, resources, and application paper. Okay, thank you. Have a good day.